So this is a great one. This is another episode in the limited series of the Black Fathers podcast series, which is a collection of video conversations covering a spectrum of intricately connected topics related to Black fatherhood. I am Dr. Alvin Thomas, clinical psychologist and assistant professor in the School of Human Ecology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Daddy, dad, papa, pa, paps, pops, my old man, father, so many different ways of referring to this all-important role, but they all convey an attachment to a critical male figure, often but not always biologically related to us. Dwayne Wade this morning in a CBS interview with Gayle King talked about his experiences with his father and how it shaped him as a person, as a man, as a father himself. He also talked about how that role of father took over his entire life. He described his role of daddy as being the most important accomplishment among all of his accomplishments, and how with every fiber of his being, he is determined to be the best dad for his children, not in comparison to other dads, just the best dad for his children. Compared to motherhood, fatherhood has only recently begun to receive positive attention in our culture, the media, and in our academic literature. Fathers have always been the other parent or the provider, without any special recognition of the key role that fathers play and the unique contribution of that role to the lives of fathers and, of course, fathers' health. Today, we want to talk unapologetically about Black fathers and the meaning of fatherhood to them. For this conversation, we have a special treat. We have a panel of Black fathers who are experts in their own experiences as dads, as Black men, and who bring the reality of their lives to our discussion of Black fatherhood. To help enrich this discussion on Black dads, we have Mr. Eric Crawford, a therapist and doctoral student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where he studies mental health and specifically the health and wellness of Black men and Black families. Mr. Leotha Stanley, employment specialist and director of the Fatherhood Program, Urban League of Greater Madison in Wisconsin, a professional musician, composer, and author of 2 children's music books, and 2 Wisconsin fathers, Mr. Cornelius Perkins and Mr. Dwayne McMillan. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me today.
Thank you. Pleasure.
So, gentlemen, thank you for agreeing to be part of this discussion. I'm really excited to jump right in. So to start, let's have each of you take a moment to first introduce yourselves, and then I'll ask each of you in turn to tell us briefly about that moment where for the first time it hit you that you were a dad, that you were now somebody's father. What was that like?
Okay, my name is Cornelius Perkins. I've been with the Urban League since late 2018. I took on a program, the construction program. I graduated. Before then, I was released from prison October 8th, and I've been out ever since. And it was all thanks to the Urban League and having positive goals set up for myself ahead of time that I wanted to accomplish upon my release. I maintained a job after my graduation from the construction program for 2 years with a solar company. And I've been an active dad at first it was 1 kid, but now I'm on number 2. She just turned 1. My oldest daughter, she's 7. She's going on 8 next year, February, in the beginning of the month. And my youngest is 1. She just turned 1, October 28th. Yeah, and she's walking in the happiest baby ever. And so, when I finally realized it was after the birth. I didn't see the birth of my first. I was dealing with a lot in the world as my manhood was being challenged. I was running the streets, trying to provide and set up a financial plan for the birth of my first. And in the process, that's what I was getting out of prison for. It was for a case for then. But I've learned over time that is a better way. And I have to say the first time that I really recognized it and realized that I was a father is when I heard her cry. Like, she had this one distinctive cry that, if I can put it in an analogy, the best analogy would be like a lioness to a cub, and that's the mother. You don't want to see the father because, when you see a male lion, you see the big mane, you see the big structure coming. He mean business. And so that's what it felt like. It felt like I needed to protect this special baby, beautiful baby girl by any means necessary and give her all my love. And to this day, I built a bond with her since I've been out that I didn't get a chance to, because when I went to prison, she was 4 months. When I got out, she was 4.5 years. And it was like a well-taught lesson on my behalf to, I have to be there. I have to be there. And so my decisions in life became that. Everything, every choice that I made, from the job, from joining the Urban League, because I didn't have to. I could have went right back to the streets. From not being around the same crowds, I did that because of her, because I needed to play this important role as a dad that I know that I can be and that I can become, that I've seen when I was a teenager. And I had her at 27, and that's the crazy part. Like, I was 27 years old, so I did good on not having a kid at a young age. I gave it time. I gave myself time to grow mentally, but I wasn't all the way there at the time. But right now, I'm happy at the place that I'm at with my kids. They both love me so dearly. Like, they can't get enough of me. They always make me smile every day, especially the little one. She's so full of energy right now. Right now, I'm taking care of both of them because they sick. And but they'll get over it. And that's just mainly my realization of when I became and knew that it was real time dad time to step up to the plate and be a dad and really, be there for my kids, for my two little girls.
Thank you so much, Cornelius. So I'll switch over to Mr. McMillan.
Well, how you doing, first of all?
Doing well, thank you.
Great. My name is Dwayne McMillan. I'm currently a student at MATC studying IT. I've been with the Urban League actually since 2006, but I joined the fatherhood program again recently. I've been with them probably about a year now. My realization of when I first became a dad was when they brought her from the emergency room and put it in my hand. It was an awesome feeling of awe, like, wow, this looks like me, So it's kind of like that perfect clone, like, wow. It was very interesting, because coming from a father who raised me as a single man was a little different.
Right.
And I got to learn how, at the early age, what a provider meant, what a protector meant, what it meant to be a man, which I'm still learning that one.
Right.
So, every day is a new challenge. Just when you think you know something, you realize that you don't know. What I've learned from my father was one of the biggest takeaways is, part of that decision making, being able to own up to when you make mistakes, being able to correct mistakes. And the hardest thing I had to learn was being able to listen. But since then, the world has evolved. And what we thought we've learned years ago from our fathers has changed in the world today, where now fathers are more taught to be more supportive, you know. So all of that protecting and all those things that we were taught earlier years kind of like went away. Like, well, what am I supposed to do now? Where you
so Dwayne, I'm going to stop you because you're about to go into something that I wanted to discuss later on.
I knew he was going that way.
you're about to go into something.
He intelligent in his own way, you know. Like he jump ahead and be like, wow.
I want to pull those in a general discussion. So hold that thought. Put a pin in that thought. We will come back to it. So I'm going to switch over to you, Eric, and then we'll end with the oldest dad here with Leotha.
I'm how you doing? I'm Eric Crawford. I don't know. I do want to introduce myself, but I do have to say and acknowledge that I don't know why, but this is very emotional for me. Just thinking thinking about your question, because I don't know. I it's tough. Well, so I guess if I introduce myself, it'll make more sense. So first, I'm a second year student at in the counseling psychology program at UW-Madison. You know, that's whatever it is. I think the most important role though I have right now is as a father and a husband. And so I'm trying to think of really how to answer this question. I am when me and my now wife got together, she already had a child. So, you know, I've had an experience. I met my now, stepdaughter when she was about 5, maybe even 4. Sometimes it's hard. But her and my wife didn't start dating until she was 6. And the question of when did I realize I was a father it's tough because there are so many moments, right, where I remember I was young and dating her mom. We had a very clear conversation about my views on dating women with children and how serious I took it, and still would take it even to this day, just because of my own upbringing. Being raised by a single mother who was dating at times. And so I told her, it was a role I took serious or something I took serious. And I said, once we are together and make this official, we have to do what we can to make this work. Because I don't want to come into someone's life and leave, especially the life of a child, and leave just because I know, how that impacts children. And so interestingly, like, I don't know, early on, I will say, I think I had the idea that I was a father, or I was stepping into this father role, but it didn't hit me until there's actually probably 2 moments. When I was up at 3 o'clock cleaning up throw up and having to go to the emergency room. And then something similar to what Cornelia said. I think it was the first time, I want to say my stepdaughter was 9, when she was crying. I don't even want to, I'm gonna say it anyway. She was crying about some disappointment around her biological father. He had made a promise that he just didn't keep. And I think it was in that moment that I realized that, okay, I'm here too. There were some ways in which I wasn't being as intentional, just because of some relationship, I think, constraints with her mom. Even though we were dating, I think there was just ways in which I think she was even hesitant about me really just being I think I would say the nurturing person who that I wanted to be. And then in that moment when my daughter was crying, I said, I don't care. I'm just going to give her all of me, if you will. And because I wanted to protect her too. It hurt me to see her crying over a man, I will say. I mean, I understand that man was her biological dad, but just the fact that she was crying over a man for me was just sent a strong, it did something to me. And we had a really good conversation. I think it was I don't know, I just really sat with her. And and it was in that moment I realized my role here is just not to be your mother's partner and supportive of your mother. I have to support you too in this real and I don't know, intimate way. Yeah, I think it wasn't into that moment because of just the messages. Her family, my wife's family, been really traditional. Just these messages coming from people. When you hear like people, ask this question when you're a stepfather or a step-parent sometimes about like wait till you have your own child and things like they say things like this, and I had to stop people from saying that, one, in front of my stepdaughter, because I think that's just disrespectful. And two, well, it's disrespectful to her and also disrespectful to the thing to me in my position and the relationship that we're trying to develop. I can go in on that, but I will say that was the first moment. She was crying. She was 9, and she was crying about her some disappointment around her dad. And yeah, we definitely had some ups and downs in our own relationship that it was just constantly confirmed for me. Yeah, I'm your daddy. I'm your father, in terms of just because it ain't no way I'd be pulling up with this, but.
So we turn over to Leotha.
Thanks for having me in.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, evening, everyone. I was in college from 74 to 78. And yes, you did say I was the oldest father here. And I was an athlete. I was running for the University of Wisconsin on the track team. And I had a choir. I started the student gospel choir at the University of Wisconsin. And in my senior year, as I was really catapulting in my track career, I found out that I was going to be a father. I was destined to go to the Olympics as a decathlete at that time. And so in my mind, the whole world was about me until I found out that she was pregnant. And not only did she have a child when we got together, just like Eric, he was about 5 years old, my stepson, but we got married. So I'm saying that in my senior year, I got married, had a child, a stepchild, and graduated from the University of Wisconsin. So all of those life-changing events happen right now, but I just dismissed anything else athletically for that period of time and started focusing, because I knew at that moment I had to protect, provide, and take care of a family of 4, not only my daughter that was born, but it was 4 of us now.
Wow. Thank you so much, guys. I think just a really interesting array of differences in where the experiences of fatherhood came in and how it changed people's lives. But across all of your stories, what I kept hearing was how your life was on one trajectory, and not in a negative way, but suddenly a new world opened up once that person, that little person showed up, and it opened up a whole different cosmology of your life, a whole different understanding of your life. So I'm going to follow up this question. I'm going to direct it specifically or first to Mr. Stanley and Mr. Crawford. And then we'll kind of go to the dads as well. Well, we'll go to the other dads too, Mr. Perkins and Macmillan. What does fatherhood mean for Black men? Is it different? And what are the assumed roles or responsibilities that might be associated with fatherhood for Black men? So again, what does that role mean for Black men?
I think that there's similarities. Fatherhood is fatherhood. You provide, you protect, you nurture, you give guidance, the nuggets that you impart into your children, your child, are things that they will hopefully keep for the rest of their life, even though they may not follow that path, but sometimes come back to that realization. I remember what my father said, because of a certain situation. But as a Black father, there's certain things that maybe other cultures don't have, and that is, how you're going to act in certain communities, how you're going to act in legalistic times or the discrimination that might happen, the racism that might happen. So that's a different conversation that you have to address while your child is growing up.
Eric?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with everything Mr. Stanley said. And just, I would just add, yeah, as a Black father, there's this element of, there's a lot of, I think as parents, we are preparing our children, but I think there's another layer of preparation we have to do for our kids. I've been watching the trials happening on, court TV or whatever. And it just thinking about, and just in terms of the last couple years of just shooting of Black police shootings and just killings of Black men, that's a level or an aspect of fatherhood that I think is unique to Black fathers. We really have to, even though it almost feels like there's no way to prepare your children for the reality, but we have to prepare them to do all we can to help them confront, one of the harsh realities of life, and that's just how people view us. Black boys specifically, Black men, and Black girls. I think it's funny. I was just telling, just talking to my daughter. She's 15 now, and one of the things I'm always, or often sharing with her is about our image, and regardless of how much image managing you do, others are still going to see a certain way, but for some reason we still have to do it. I don't know. So that's what I would.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So Cornelius and Dwayne, do you feel like your parenting as a Black man, as a Black father, is different or has to be different compared to other ethnic groups, other racial groups?
Well, I'll go first to answer that question for myself. The answer to that is yes. If you want me to elaborate on a little bit about that, I can, but just straight yes, because it has to be different based. As a Black father, you have to have multiple hats, and you have to be able to deal with multiple situations, and especially if you have a boy and a girl, because there's different dynamics for each child. Trying to teach from a girl's perspective as a Black father is different from trying to teach from a boy's perspective as a Black father. They're both rewarding but difficult in their own ways. And like both of Mr. Stanley and Mr. Crawford said, is that you got the protection part, you have the love part, you have the nourishing part, you have the cuddle part, you have all these different things that as a Black man you have to do. And the hardest part of all those things would be the protecting part, because you want to protect, but how do you teach a child to watch for something that you barely know how to navigate through yourself? That makes it very difficult when you look at, let's just say far as, just growing up in the world. Well, we as Black fathers face new challenges and old challenges on a daily basis. It never changes. So I guess the best way is for me in some areas, is to, if your child is at a point where they can understand, is to kind of let them see what you go through and teach them the best you can to how to not get caught in the snares that can throw things off, because you got to have your personal life and your educational life in the same path. And not only that, the most important key is the partner that you choose to have the child with, because that in itself makes things more difficult when you're not on the same page or don't have anything in common as far as moral respect to what the child needs to be taught.
So I see the difference. I noticed the difference because of, first and foremost, the race, the color of our skin, the appearance of the way our appearances are. And, I say this because, I get judged off of this. I get judged off of this. And because of that judgment, I have to be this way. And when I see that I have to be this way, it's the same way that the next father is doing it, but he don't get judged off of this. You know, he don't get judged off of this. It's more easy for him, where people make it harder for us because they're, and it's other races, and it's because, you know, they feel like we already don't fit in. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like because of that, they want us to work extra hard to become this type of dad or this type of person in our culture that they think they know about and they really don't know about. And it's like, I feel like we have to do our own research and our own, you know, we have to get our own sources. You know, it's how we raise, you know, from our dads and their dads and so on, and what gets passed down to us. And because I find myself doing things way differently, but some of the things that I'm doing is not different, you know, because I was taught that, and my pops was taught that, and, you know, it got passed down through the teachings of me, you know, teaching me that. And so I first and foremost go off of that. And I feel like it's a big difference in the Black culture as a Black dad, how we should raise our kids and how we shouldn't raise our kids. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I love the integration. I feel like that's a part of life. I feel like we as human beings should be able to explore this world that was created for us to roam and be able to know, you know, different cultures and how their dads, you know, you have Hispanics, you have, you know, Caucasians, you have Germans, you have, you know, Chinese, so on, etc. And they have cultures of how they're raising their kids, you know, boy or girl, as mother, father, you know, they have different ways of raising their kids, which is all boils down to, it's not different really at all. It's just what they're being normally raised, you know, time after time, day after day, raised around. And so I look at it like that, like it's a difference, but it's not a difference. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I teach my daughter how to stand up for herself, just like the next dad would teach their daughter how to stand up for themselves. But they probably do it just a little bit different from what I do. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and that's what I'm trying to say.
So if I hear across the board, what I'm hearing is that there's some commonalities, some things that are common across all fathers, but because of the unique situations that Black fathers are finding themselves in, especially unique situations, cultural and political and legal and other unique situations in America, that Black fathers are forced, Black fathers have a necessity to prepare their children differently, to treat their children differently, to use different practices, to pass on different messages. And so so I'm thinking of the kinds of messages that are out there about Black fathers specifically, the kinds of images that we see of Black fathers on our TVs, in our newspapers, that we hear people talking about. And the usual message is that Black fathers are not interested in their children, that Black men abandon their families, they abandon their children. Black men are not responsible, that they are absent, they're deadbeats. Are these accurate representations of Black fathers? Like, is that correct? Is that accurate?
You know, it's all about the news. A newscaster and a news station thrives when the news is negative. And so that's what they show most of the time. Mm-hmm. And I remember when it was like the 80s, 90s, not that they don't do it now, but you read the paper and it would say a Black man robbed a bank in Madison, Wisconsin. But if that person wasn't Black, then it would be no reference to color. And so it's all about these images in the minds of other people. I even remember going up to like Beaver Dam, and I was in a McDonald's, and I heard a little girl say to her mommy, "Oh, look, Mom, there's one." You know, and so it's what the media and what's inside the heads of the parents that trickles down to their kids, that perpetuates the negative stereotypes. And in the 50s and 40s, it was all about step and fetch it and blackface and roles that movies, you had to be a maid, or you had to be a servant, shoe shiner, porter on the train. And that's all they thought about,
So I know everybody here has heard or have seen, or at least heard discussed, some of these myths that Black fathers are abandoning families and are deadbeats and are absent. When you hear those messages, did these messages shape how much you wanted to be in your children's lives or in your family lives? Or did that just not feature at all as you were thinking about your children and your family?
Well, for me, it definitely made me want to go against the grain, because I didn't like those terminologies. And when I heard things like that, and like Mr. Stanley said, when you think of the average movie that comes out, or the stepdad did it, or the father did it, I think, the America has put, again, that negative image of what Black fathers are like. And me growing up with a father, I didn't have that image. I had a strong father, and I was fortunate enough to have that situation. So it kind of made me want to be like, well, what are they talking about? But as I grew into my manhood and realized the challenges and the obstacles that were making things difficult for me to be a Black father, I started looking at things differently, but I still didn't like the negativity of what they felt was a Black man was, because I recognize that, well, we as being stolen property is what I like to use. Well, we only learn that from what the masters taught. So if you want to say, oh, Black men are no good and we don't take care of our children, then where do we learn that from? Because I didn't learn that from my father, but we did learn that from the cultural abuse that we've taken for the years, and even our ancestors. So if they want to say that, if America want to say that, then you should be looking at your own fathers in different races that who basically projected that from their perspective, because we learned what we saw.
And because from their perspective, it was actually going on in their culture. And it seems like, different cultures will throw it to a bad way towards the Black culture. And I've noticed that for years. It's like, sometimes I used to think when I was younger, because I was unknowingly about it, that I didn't think that it would happen in a different, household, like Black or Hispanic, but it actually does. When I'm seeing it doesn't really happen around me, which is the Black culture that I've been raised. It's not happening. You got fathers getting taken away through the justice system, through the DOC and stuff like that, and fathers losing lives because they on the block or because they in some gang. Heavenly, Black men, and that's when I can say that those terminologies that people the news or different races use towards our culture, our Black culture. That's when that comes true, because but you don't have no choice, because the man is dead, he's locked up, or because the mama and him didn't work out, or he just didn't want to step up to the plate. It's not, it's all comes down to a choice for me when it comes to those things, that people say that Black men are not there for their kids. That's a choice. You have a lot. I don't see men go and get, full custody of kids, hundreds of men. And I was shocked about that, because I didn't think that was true. I didn't think that men really step up to the plate until I actually, saw it. Black men specifically, until I saw it with my own two eyes. So it all depends on.
Essentially, some of these myths that you were hearing, you had believed some of them,
in a certain way because I haven't seen it yet.
Right.
So I can only believe so much of it. Like, well, maybe it is like that, but I haven't seen it, so I really can't say that. But then when I saw it, it was like, oh no, ain't nothing like that. And then come to find out, it's more like that in your culture than it is in my culture.
Right.
You know, and so they passed that bad seed down to our culture. Like, it's been there for years. No, it haven't. It's been where you're at for years. You know, I see white men leave their, I hear this one famous story was my dad went to the store and never came back.
Right.
And so it's just like, I see it as that. And that's the way I look at it.
So I know a lot of the research, and I know Eric is aware of some of this research, tells us that Black men are more likely to be involved across the span of their children's lives, in their children's lives, compared to any other racial group. And that's involved in all kinds of different ways, not just financially involved, but intimately involved in caring for their children, physically being present for their children. Black men are more likely to be involved. But again, it depends on how you're measuring involvement and who is measuring involvement. Eric, I know it looks like you want to jump in on that.
I do and I don't. And so I love how Cornelius put it. And I would say, for me, it is a myth and it's not. It's I know what the research says, and I also live the myth, if you will. So when I was younger, that was the truth. I'm talking me and my 12 cousins, if you will, 10 or 12 cousins. That was the reality. I think only one of us had our father in their life consistently, I would say. And so that informed how my views about fatherhood, and just like Dwayne said, I want to do something different. I think it was Dwayne that said it. I want to create a different narrative. And of course, as I experienced or got older and really started to take a step back and look at things more broadly, I realized that was my experience, but it wasn't it was common enough for it to matter, but not what I think is typically painted. It's not the dominant narrative. And that's the truth that I'm learning. And I have learned that that's not the dominant narrative. And even for fathers who, because I also witnessed a father who wasn't in the home, who didn't always have a good relationship with the mother, who did fight to be involved. Even as I reflect back on some of those experiences, it's and I talked to who I call my stepdad, and I talked to my mother about like just experiences growing up. It's just interesting, the new insights that I get, and as I'm engaged in research, it's interesting to see how these things have played out in my life. And it's definitely informed how I parent and how I want it is informed the father that I want to be. I have to share the second part. So the second time I realized I was a dad. So I just think it was perfect because I battled with the absent father myth myself. So my second son was born right before graduate school started for me. And literally 4 weeks. And I don't know how to say it. So after just a series of conversations, I made the decision to still move, but my family did not move. And so my first year of my doctoral program was spent between Wisconsin and where I'm from, or where my family lives in Georgia. And I'm not gonna lie, it was tough because I was like, some of what I was getting, and even my own criticism of myself was, oh man, somebody had directly said it, so it definitely resonated more. Do you think you're okay with this because your dad wasn't there? And I struggled with that for months while trying to do this doctoral program, and also still trying to be present as present as I could be. And it made me really reflect over dads who may not be there, and just how people only see part of the story because of emotion, because of who gets to tell the story, and because of how minimized our roles are. And so even in my distant back and forth ways, there's ways I'm sure my wife now can speak to that my role probably was really helpful. And that extended beyond just me paying bills in two different places.
Right.
And so I think it really, yeah, I think it's not as black and white, and this narrative, this mythical narrative that's painted it's really just because some people get to tell the story. And I think the beautiful thing about what we're doing now is that we're telling the story. And I'm gonna rest my case there.
So I know that we've all heard that phrase, and I think you've kind of alluded to it, all of you, about that protecting, providing role, which we talk about in a different conversation as part of this series. But I know that you've all heard that phrase, man of the house, and you may have already used it yourself multiple times. I'm the man of the house, or I'm supposed to be the man of the house. What does that even mean, man of the house? Is there some kind of special authority that comes with being with fatherhood, or for Black men? Is there some kind of special authority for being man of the house that comes for Black men?
Can I take this one first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so when you just said that, it just instant clicked to me. My opinion about it would be that once a dad solidifies, I believe structure is a real, very important part in a family, whether the dad is there or not, because that leaves a mark in the blueprint of where to start from to keep things going, to be able to, because tomorrow is not promised, and it's not, and that's what I meant, whether the dad is there or not. Tomorrow is not promised, but you will want to leave behind some type of structure that the family can feed off of, and be able to prioritize life around that structure, to where it can work out for the better of the family at the end of the day. That's all I want to say about that.
Excellent, thanks.
That was good. I would say I like that. And for, I guess from my point of view, the man of the house is, I might be sometimes I consider myself a natural.
Don't get in trouble now.
That's I got to think. So my wife and I have it some of it depends on your partner, right? In terms of just, I want to say, honestly, it's nothing but more responsibility. That's what I want to say.
That's exactly what it is. That's why I just said, when you lay that first foundation, it shouldn't be no more than that. It shouldn't, because when you think of the man of the house, I instantly thought, when I heard that, that's a lot of work.
Right.
That's a whole lot of work outside of what I already got going on outside of these doors.
And sometimes, a lot of work, sometimes work that others will, they might communicate that they want you to do, and also fight you or argue you and when you're trying to do that work. So that's why I say it's a lot of responsibility, and sometimes it's a lot of pressure, and then what it ends up amounting to is, essentially, in my experience, your role is really the mouthpiece. After discussions are had, the dad or the father, the man of the house, should be communicating those
to the rest of the company,
to the rest of the company, to the world. It could be to the world. And that's what I'm learning. Like, man of the house is like the mouthpiece. What me and my wife, at least, like, we come together. Okay, we have these, sometimes long and arduous discussions about certain decisions, and and maybe because I'm still young, I'm trying to figure out, okay, I don't know how to, or we haven't quite figured out who breaks this when we are at a standstill.
Right.
Who breaks
that tie in that discussion?
Yeah. But essentially, it doesn't matter what's decided. I'm going to have to be the person to communicate it. We had to kick someone out who I didn't.
Right.
I think I might have okayed him to stay there, but we had to kick him out. And, cool. I'm also say just liken it to, I'm also the person who would have to pull the trigger if need be, which is connected to that protector role. I'm literally and figuratively, the man of the house is the person who pulls the trigger.
So I am going to take all of that discussion and wrap it around. I don't want you to any points that you have about this, don't drop them yet, because this is going to, I'm wrapping this piece into the point that you probably have, because it's going to be tied in to that that man of the house issue as well. So there's what I consider an unspoken contract that Black men are born into. It's a social contract that says that Black men protect their families, Black men control and safeguard their children, Black men strengthen and defend their communities, and they remain the strength and protection for their communities. That's the social contract. If you're born male and Black, there's that expectation that you grow into throughout your years and into being an adult, and that's expected of you. And I think that's where that man of the house comes in, because if you're a good man of the house, you become a good man of the community. You become a good man of the neighborhood. So you're looking after not only your kids, but all of the kids in the neighborhood. You're making sure that nothing foolish is happening in your neighborhood as a way of protecting your family, your kids, and the neighborhood. But how do these unspoken, nobody tells you about it, you just assume it. How do these unspoken social and cultural contracts between society and men, between Black fathers and everybody else, how does that impact Black men who are fathers? This understanding of this social contract, or the pressure of that social contract, how does that affect Black fathers? How does this man of the house thing affect Black fathers?
Well, first of all, I think the term man of the house is used in a wide variety of different things. Now, you guys use it from a positive spin, but there's a negative spin about it.
Well, talk to us, Dwayne.
Right, because that when, the way I've heard it, it always came out, well, you the man of the house. So, and my response is, what that mean? Because in reality, you saying I'm the man of the house, but like Mr. Crawford said, when I take that stand in that position, I'm challenged. So you can't say to me, well, you're the man of the house, and expect me to solve the problem or come up with a solution, and then challenge me on the other hand when I make a decision. It's very confusing. So I take offense to when someone says, well, you're the man of the house. I just say, okay, well, you're the woman of the house. Okay, so if I'm the man of the house and you're the woman of the house, we just have to come to a fine agreement.
Right.
But don't say I'm the man of the house and then leave it up to me, because you might have a problem with what decision I make, and then you're gonna get mad at me later on, be like, well, you didn't handle that right. Okay, well then you be the man of the house. So there's a concept where that I think that's used in a negative way. I think it should just be, okay, well, and this if you have a partner,
right, that
you try to come to some type of agreement that you both can live with. Now, and that's not easy to do.
No.
Because one person is gonna always feel like, well, I didn't get my 2 cents in. So I guess from what I'm learning, and I'm still learning this one, is, well, I can give this much and then you can give that much, and we can just call it a day, because it's no one's gonna win. I don't like sleeping on the couch. So I'm gonna tell you, look, okay, you handle it, right. But far as man of the house, it really go back to what I'm seeing today's man is to be supportive. We have to take all of that, everything that I've heard that we talk about. But when you start looking at society, the court of law, and all these different cultures who are imposing their what they think every man across the globe should be. And that's hard and it's very difficult because I didn't grow up with white culture. So I can't be that white man in my house when I'm not a white man. I'm a black man and I'm going to be a black man because that's what I know. So, but when you get to the court of law and you start talking about what it is to be black in the court and they looking at you foreign, like, well, what does that mean? Because when you're talking to your peers or in the courtrooms, they're white. So they don't even understand and don't even acknowledge that same strength that you just said we as black men carry, that protective role, that that teaching our children from a not the word, I heard the word controlling, but I don't want to say it like in a controlling view. But all these things, when we do that, we're looked at as overbearing fathers. And we're not overbearing fathers. It basically just goes back to, we have to be that way because we don't want to see our children hurt. We don't want our children and our spouses to go through what we go through. But somehow society has broken that to a point where we forget about those things. We forget about that everything that affected the black man has affected the black woman and the black child. And when they realize, and it goes back to what you said of taking the community to raise the child. Well, now we got to put that back in place, but we also got to have trust. We as black families and black men now, we're so broken within ourselves, we have no trust even for the black man that we think that's a good man. He can look good, he can talk good, he can dress good, but really, is he good? And that takes time. That takes time to see that person walk that walk in the community. You can't just tell me, oh, I got a degree and I'm a good man. I've done this and I've done that because I take care of my family. No, that means nothing to me. I need to see that walk on a daily basis before I can even respect you, not only as a black man, but as a man, period. So it's really kind of a broad situation of what the expectations are for us. And expectations really are premeditated resentment for being a man, a black man in some cases, because it's hard. You have some people that say, I'd rather be a white man. Well, they say that because they feel like being a black man is just so hard, but we have no support system in a sense. I mean, if the mother and the child looks for the man to give them guidance and help, who do we look to? All I can do is pray.
So I really like, you said a number of things. That the two pieces that most recent pieces that stuck out for me is the premeditated resentment and men doing kind of trying to fulfill that social contract, that unspoken social contract, and supporting and strengthening all these different people. So they're being sapped from, and they're okay with doing that because that's their role, that's their responsibility. But then looking around and trying to find out, well, I'm pouring out, but who's pouring into me?
Nothing.
Nobody's pouring into me. So I want us to talk a little bit then about how does this social contract of men protecting and providing for everybody else, how does that affect the emotional and mental health of black men? Does it allow space? Does it give space for black men to have an emotional life, a mental health life? How does that affect black men emotionally and mentally? I'm going to go over to Eric because I know Eric and Leotha, because I know both of you have done some of this mental health work, and then we'll come back over again to Cornelius and Dwayne to chime in.
So I was just going to say, it weighs on us, and we don't always know, because we're so used to just moving and going and pouring out, like you all said. We honestly, like even me as a mental health professional, if I don't intentionally just stop and check in with myself, I won't know if I'm down. I won't know until I collapse or until I crash. And literally, you got the messages, the work you have to do, the responsibilities, and those things eventually start to stack up and they get heavy. And when you, as I know in my experience, it is not easy to find, and this is coming from a guy who's a Black therapist, it is not always easy to find a therapist connect with, who you feel like can hear and receive what you have, right? And or like, you have all these, you have these different groups, but sometimes there's just something lacking even from those. So finding a place to recharge or that pours into you is difficult. And it gets heavy. I'm not gonna lie, it gets heavy. Sometimes I'm like, I have to really ask myself, how am I, like, what is this I'm feeling? Like, am I sad? Am I disappointed? I wanted to, I'm not gonna say give up. I don't want y'all to not give up in the sense of life, but sometimes I there have been moments when I'm like, is it worth it in terms of just continuing this? Sorry about my screen, but to stay in this relationship, can it be done another way? I gotten to points where I empathize with others who might decide to do different, to operate outside of a relationship or even outside of the home, just because some of it just seems unnecessary. Like you literally could just, in your view, be doing your best, or in others' view, working to do your best and it not be recognized, which I think just adds on this other layer of stress. It's like, damn, I'm doing all that. Excuse my language. I'm doing all of this and it's not being, it doesn't seem to be helping, at least qualitatively. Mr. Stanley.
I'm going to swing over to Leotha. So again, just thinking about this social contract, this man of the house and the expectation of Black men, Black fathers protecting and providing for everybody else. How does that affect their own emotional and mental health? And is there space for their emotional and mental health in those expectations?
Yeah, it's I really haven't thought about that. And now that you mentioned that, I'm thinking how much pressure I have on me because I have this attitude of wanting to succeed. And to be part of the definition of man of the house, if I wasn't, I don't know what I'd do. So now I'm thinking about all the people who had that innately inside of them, but didn't carry it out.
Right.
Did they run? Did they not become a part of the house, let alone be a man of the house?
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people jump and run. I mean, they just pull up stake and I can't handle this because, number one, and that's societal as well, because you didn't get hired at the job. You can't provide now. And so your responsibility is waned. And so you're going to just try to take care of yourself, or you just don't care anymore. And then other responsibilities come into play that has nothing to do with the family that you just made. So when I think about man of the house, I don't know that we need to, I think about authority, but I don't think that we should put weight on it as that term sounds.
Right.
And because when I think about man of the house, I think that there should be a daddy chair in the room that nobody else can sit in.
Right.
And but there's a woman of the house, and if there's any sense in a man of the house, he listens to the woman of the house.
Yeah.
And we want to know who has the last word. It all depends on if she gives it to you or not,
Right.
That's just, I'm old school. So I say I'm the man.
It hasn't changed.
Right.
I say I'm man of the house, but it comes with a whole bunch of qualifiers. What was set up in the beginning when it comes to responsibilities? Are you responsible for that? And you're responsible for that. And then once all of that is packaged, and then somebody comes into your house, you can act like the man in the house because of all the things that were decided in that package.
I think it might have been Dwayne who mentioned this, the really important role of having that right partner. Having a partner who you share similar values, or at least the two of, even if you don't share all the same values, the two of you have this common idea that you are willing to work hard for this, because it is hard work.
Mhm.
And so kind of connecting that with what Leotha just shared, that when some men, when they are confronted with the idea that I'm about to become a father, or that I am a father and I've been doing it for a while, and all of the roles and responsibilities and expectations, societal and otherwise, that are pressed upon you, some men could just cut and run, like you said, because it is a huge weight. And it's a weight that's even heavier if you perceive that you're carrying it by yourself.
Exactly.
But if there's somebody else, like Dwayne was saying, if you have a partner who you know is helping you shoulder some of that weight, sometimes you might carry it all by yourself, and sometimes she'll shift some of that burden over to her shoulder. If you have a partner who's helping you carry that weight, you help her carry her weight. She helps you carry your weight. You're both carrying the weight of a strong, of a building Black family.
Right.
Then there's less of the sense of feeling overwhelmed. And if you're connected to community, you're connected to resources, that helps lighten some of that burden. But
see, all of this needs to be talked about to young kids while they're growing up, so it can be part of them, so they know what to do. I wasn't taught that. I don't know if anybody else here was taught that.
I think in general, it seems like something, there's the unspoken social contract. So nobody tells you that these expectations are there.
Right.
It's not until you have a child or you get into a relationship, suddenly all these expectations show up from nowhere. And not only does nobody tell you what those expectations are, nobody tells you how to accomplish those expectations.
Right.
And so you have to figure all of it out while trying to also take care of yourself as a man, as a person, as a human being. So your humanity, your manhood, your Blackness, all of that is pushed to the side as you try to live up to all of these expectations. And for some men, like Eric was saying, you think to yourself, you know what, maybe I just want to just run away too. Maybe I just want to leave because this is just so much. This is too much. I don't know how to do this. And even if I don't know how to do it, I am still expected to do it.
Yeah.
And so I love your suggestion, Leotha, that we need to start talking to our boys about this, not just our girls.
Yes.
We need to start talking to our boys about relationships. We need to start talking to our boys about what it means to be a man, and from a healthy perspective, right? You're the man, and so you're in charge of the house.
Right. And you know, I'm thinking about my father right now, who passed away a couple of days ago, but 4 years ago.
Okay.
On November 15th. So I'm just thinking about the stability that he had when I was growing up. In the house, he worked. And when he came home from work, he went to work on the second job. I rarely saw him, but I respected him. But the thing is that I wanted to say is that I don't know about the emotional trauma that he was, had inside.
Dealing with
all of these 42 years of working at that place where he worked, and I didn't care about it. I just knew that we were taken care of. So you're talking about this stress of being the man of the house. Wow, that's deep.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about it now.
Yeah, because you often, and it seems like it's funny because we have to carry it and without, and I think I'm learning too. Some of it's internal, some of it is I'm learning even for myself. Some of it's internal for me, like these pressures that I probably magnify the pressures too, because I want to be the good father, if you will, or and husband, and I don't want to burden my wife with things that I believe or have been kind of socialized to think that I should be able to handle. Like we almost have to be generalists, and whether in the home or in the community, right? The person, people can call on, and some of it's internal in terms of just the dialogue. Like I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to kind of be reliable and dependable for people. And at the same time, I love what you said, Mr. Stanley, in terms of just, it's probably best if we kind of indoctrinate or socialize or just teach kids when they're younger, because I am part of a community now, and sometimes it's still difficult to access the resources I have. And a lot of it is because I'm having to relearn and unlearn and deconstruct some of the things that have already formed in my childhood, in terms of just my beliefs around manhood and independence. So I think that, so I do think what you said is what needs to happen.
So I think this is a really good place to end our conversation, because I think it ends at a place where we're talking about what comes next. We're talking about what this means to us, how it's affected us, how it's affecting us, and we're talking now about what can we do different.
Can I before you actually end it, not to cut you off?
No. So when the way I'm going to end it is to ask you to say something. So I'll ask each of you to say something. So I think this gives us a space to be able to, one, talk about maybe how we've done it, reflect about how we've done it, but also think about how we want to do it going forward. So I'm going to ask each person to just take a minute and think about it. But thinking about all that we've talked about, what one piece of advice would you offer to fathers who are listening here? Or maybe to mothers who are listening and going back to support the fathers in their lives? Or maybe social workers, or maybe police, or maybe teachers who are listening here and are going to go work with kids and with fathers. What one piece of advice or one practical thing that they can do, a piece of advice or a practical thing that fathers can do, what that you could share with the audience?
I'll go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to, I have a friend that's in Milwaukee, a real good friend. He's older than me. He's in his late 40s. So, he's experienced a lot through the, judicial system and, DLC and stuff like that. So he knows way more than I know. He's been places that I've never been, around the world. And he knows things. But he has an office in his house that he made for himself. And on his desk, and I found it so profound at the time, because I really had to ask myself that question, like, am I? What am I? Who am I? Do this apply, to me too? He has this, the name tag that, they probably say your name, or they probably say, something different. He has one that says the fixer of everything. And it was deep to me at the time, because in his world, I know personally, he really is the fixer of everything. And I try to strive to be that, since this, subject just been brought up of what the man of the house should be. And I try to be the fixer of everything. But in the process, I've been learning that I have to, and this leads to your question, Dr. Thomas. I have to, the advice that I would give, play to your strengths. Play, don't, what you're capable of, what you can handle, how much you can handle. It's okay if you handle just that. He told me a story of this friend that his own daughter got mad at his relationship with his grandson. And this is his first grandson. She's, jealous of that. She had to question her own son, like, I don't know why you like him so much. I've seen it where he's done the most littlest things to appease this young child and change this child's perspective on, what dads are, what Black fathers, and what roles they play in life. And just seeing that alone, I've learned from him to just give what I can at the time, what I'm able to do, not to overdo it, because overdoing it. If somebody asks me for help, they're not asking me to overdo it. They just asking me plain and simple for help, like, and I have to be able to be knowledgeable enough to give what I can if I am able to, even if it's pointing you in a different direction. Well, I know somebody that can help you out with that, even if it's that I played my part for that time being. I'm going to learn from that. I'm not overdoing it. I'm taking the steps. I heard Aaron Rodgers say about a game. He say, relax. When you tell yourself to relax, it seems like everything comes into perspective. So some people be so, fixed on, fixing things and helping people. And sometimes it makes things worse, and they don't get that. And they may get that. But at the same time, I would have to say my advice is, just relax and give what you can. And whatever you're giving, make sure I don't want nothing in return. If I'm able to fix something for you or help you through something, whether that's mentally, financially, physically, whatever way, I'm going to give what I have and what I'm able to give at that time to you to be better or to get past that barrier in your life, in the way, in your path that you're going through right now. And that would be my advice, is just play to your strengths, and don't play towards something that you're not good at. Don't reach out and try to do something that you haven't done this. So you've been thinking about it, doing it, but you haven't done this. Don't do that. Just play to what you're good at. And that will be my advice.
Thanks. So we have about 5 minutes left, and the 5 minutes are going to have to be spread among the three of you. So each of you probably have about 1 minute. And then I get the remaining 2 minutes to close it down. So each of you have about 1 minute to give your piece of advice or suggestion for practical thing.
Well, let me just jump in and say that we're all on a journey. And while you're on your journey, as my advice, find someone to go along on that journey with you, the right person. And when the two of you are on that journey and there's a young one involved, if you have kids or kids are included in your journey, then make sure that you're nurturing, communicating all of the things in an honest way with all parties on that journey. The road will be much smoother, the stress load will be lighter, and the destination would be more obtainable. And that's what my suggestions are.
Thank you very much, Leotha.
Yep, and I would have to say I agree with what Mr. Stanley said wholeheartedly, because that's the area I was going into. So I'm just going to sum up and say everything he said, but I ask that the piece of advice is to be patient and understanding. And if you can be patient and understanding, I think that carries a lot of weight, because not everybody is going to do what we hope that they do. So, I hope my child does the things that I would expect my child to do. But what happens when that child doesn't? How do you keep that connection? How do you keep that fatherly role? Well, patient, because it don't happen overnight, And because I'm still a work in progress, as my spouse, my partner, my children, and anybody around me is learning, I got to remember I'm still learning too.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dwayne.
I'll make this quick as well. So just relax and play to your strengths. Find a good partner, be patient, and recognize this is a process. And I would add, risk trust. Risk trusting somebody, someone's or a group, a community, whatever. Risk trusting others with your heart. It's something I'm learning and continuing to learn. Risk trusting others with your heart.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. Just really, really powerful discussion. Great points of advice. Really, really big gems of wisdom throughout the conversation that I hope our audience benefits from. I want to thank you all again for sharing with us your expertise, your experiences, and your time. We look forward to talking with you again. And to the audience, we look forward to having you at the next episode of the Black Fathers podcast series. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Black Fatherhood podcast with Dr. Alvin Thomas. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends on social media or post a review online. Thanks again for being part of the conversation.